You're listening to A Creative Excuse, presented by Hecho a Mano. This episode is Diego Mier y Teran Jimenez Cacho. Diego is the co-founder and director of Innovando la Tradición, which is the nonprofit arm of Colectivo 1050, which is the pottery collective that's made up of artisans from more than 7 communities in Oaxaca. You can find their work at Hecho a Mano. If you've seen any of the traditional ceramics from Oaxaca, it's by somebody made up of that cooperative. So Diego is the co-founder of the nonprofit that runs the commercial collective. I guess it's not that complicated. Anyway, had a great talk with Diego about some very broad and deep topics and some things that I think are really important to consider as we move forward personally and as a society and as a globe as we come out of this pandemic. So anyway, had a really great chat. I hope you enjoy it. There's a lot of good stuff to contemplate there. Everything Hecho a Mano is online, hechoamano.org. Please go by there, and if you have the means, would love your support of the business. During the month of April, 10% of all sales are going to the Santa Fe Community Foundation COVID-19 Relief Fund. So a little extra support there for our community. As always, thanks for listening, and hope you all are safe and well and staying as balanced as possible. All right. I'm doing pretty good. The days are strange. It's like syrup. It's like fluid, but it's like very thick. And the days kind of seem to smash together. It's like my routine of going to work every day was like kind of my way of keeping time, I think. And and I don't have that. So it just everything seems like much more just together. Together in a way that's just like mush. But it's not bad. It's just like, it's a trip. It's surreal. It's just like, I'm just not used to it,
I guess so many things. I think we lost meaning to so many things, or the structures are so upside down or just disappeared, that right the meaning that we drew from normality, from the cycles, the things we took for granted, it's gone. So everything has new meanings or no meaning, or like, what's a weekend?
Or just straight up fear. Like, there's, because it's like, there's so much to unpack from that. I think that's a common sort of response that I'm seeing in just my peer group is this desire to take this opportunity to reevaluate the meanings that we're creating in life, and where we're drawing our inspiration, and how we're spending our time, and what our priorities are. I feel like a broken record because I keep saying this over and over again, but it's like I feel like it's a huge opportunity, of course, globally and nationwide, but I can't control that. I can take advantage of the opportunity myself, and of course, hopefully, the more people that do that, the more people will affect our nation, affect the globe, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, it's an opportunity, but you have to take the opportunity. There will be transformation. What that will look like, I don't know. It's like, I
Who
mean,
knows?
I feel like I'm really getting clear. It's funny, you texted me, you work too much, and I know that was a joke, but it's true. Um, and it's like this time right now for me is reevaluating how I derive meaning and purpose and drive from work, and attempting to kind of disentangle myself from that being kind of on the top, where like work work I'm using work to support my own needs, rather than taking my like me serving work serves me rather than me serving work. That's what I'm trying to flip, you know. um
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's subtle, but it's like it totally changes how I approach my life, you know.
Hmm.
um but yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's certainly challenging because, like, financially, like, Kara can't. Kara, my wife's a body worker. She does massage therapy.
Hmm.
My cats are refusing to work, and the gallery's closed. So so it's like, okay, so how do we like scale back? And it's again, it's that opportunity of like, okay, do we really need this? Do we really need this? Do we really need this? Those kinds of things, So, um, but also training our cats to work, that's a big part.
That's always super important. That's going to be one of the major changes.
Right, it's getting cats into the workforce.
Yeah, yeah. Cats as the householders.
um, yeah, so it's crazy. How is your life looking these days? What do your days look like?
Well, I think I need to recognize that I'm very privileged in having a beautiful house where I can do my life and my
Yeah.
work. I don't feel constrained. I'm not in four walls. I have a lot of fresh
Hmm.
air and greens and things. Um, so working at home is very easy. Um, that feels good, and then I have more time to cook, to fix things at home. Then I also have a lot of work. There's lots of things to solve still. But it's also nice to have the team that is like all the people in the team in the office. They're not going to the office mostly, but they're all super committed. They're working. Everybody has something to do. So the thing is still moving. Um, the artisans, we've had some very nice Skype calls or Zoom with the artisans, some of them for the first time, like a video
Hmm.
call. So it's a lot of fun. And they're all doing well, they're all working. They want the project to continue.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the energy is one of, okay, things have not stopped, let's continue. We have to rearrange a lot,
Hmm.
like just the budget, the projections, the sales, of course, are down to zero. And
I sent you some money last week.
great,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
And yeah, so we're doing a lot of work that we didn't used to do before, of all this budget planning and stuff, and really just rethinking the scenarios. But I mean, yeah, we're having to rethink lots of things, but still in the same line. Like we feel that what we've been doing for the last 10 years is still or even more relevant today. Just for us, it's now the time to actually create more space for the deeper aspects of our work, to make them more visible, to put them more in front. The ideas of being in touch with soil and with the earth, and how to listen to the world, to nature, to be more centered, more focused on what's important. All of that is part of what we learn from the artisans, from the potters. The idea of also community and that way of living, that way of producing art, or whatever you want to call it. I think all of that is super relevant. So our job is still to make that visible, accessible.
Yeah.
And now we have to figure out new ways of doing it.
So you talked about wanting to kind of talk about getting into the origins. Can you talk about how, maybe just give like a little summary of what Colectivo 1050 is, and what Innovando y Tradición is, and the work that you do? Just kind of a little summary.
So technically, it's these two organizations that create what is called technically a hybrid. So on the one hand, the non-profit Innovando la Tradición, and the other hand, the for-profit brand, which is an artisan-owned cooperative. And so those two wings, they work together with the idea of basically opening new spaces for the ancient and sophisticated and also contemporary wisdom of the potters making clay objects in Oaxaca, where one of our goals has been to recover the functional, the utilitarian aspect of pottery. So for many years, crafts have been sold as decorative stuff for the walls or for the shelves or for the vitrines. But we've been focused for more than 10 years in having clay in the houses of people, in the hands, in the tables, in the stove, so that you can eat, drink, as it's been for the last 4,000 years. That's the origin of pottery. And it's also a project for us as designers to learn other ways to create tools for lives. So it's a way to learn from the potters and to learn from pottery as a way of life and as a way of being. So that's, let's say, the deeper purpose of the project. And also through the cooperative, we sell all these clay products from 7 villages around Oaxaca, also in the borders of Oaxaca, Chiapas, Guerrero, and Puebla. And through the nonprofit, through Innovando, we do all types of activities related to cultural exchange and knowledge exchange with the artisans. Also a lot of, how would you say, promotion or communication through books, publications, and a big exhibition that's traveling around. Traveled through Europe, now in Mexico. We do trips with the artisans. So basically everything that is needed to open new spaces and for clay to shine and for people to touch it, and for the opening new spaces or spaces for new stories around clay to arise. For pottery has been for many years, or I think it still is, something that's regarded a little bit as backwards, as dirty, as a poor man's option. It's this idea that we have in our hyper-industrialized society about earth and soil being something, dirty. The paradigm of cleanliness and I don't know what's the word in English. Asepsia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's more or less what we do.
There's so much. There's so much there because you're supporting individuals, you're supporting a craft, you're supporting a kind of a paradigm shift. You're supporting, like, I feel like one of the things that I so resonate with your project is that it goes from micro to macro. It looks at, and I think the reason why it does that is because it doesn't look at them as separate things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it looks at the relationship of individual life and making, and one's part of a tradition and culture and those roots as an integral part of just humanity in general, but also just like how we go about living as a global community. So that, I mean, I think that's one of the things that is so fantastic. I mean, it's so simple, right? You take just the idea of clay, right? And I think, most people might think about, ways of making traditional pottery as like, oh, we figured that out, 4,000 years ago. It's like, it's basic. It's like, we've moved on, we've grown so much from that. And yet, like you said, y'all are learning a lot about that as a way of life, pottery making as a way of life. Are there specific things you can kind of pull out that you are taking from that as like, what are the lessons from pottery making? That's a big question, right?
So, no, it's great. I mean, I think so I think what many people that work with potters or with artisans get wrong is that it's not about the object or the technique. It's about what makes those objects possible in a social, cultural, or even mythological context. Because techniques come and go. Techniques can even disappear, and they can come back. It's fairly easy to recover a technique, or to invent new ones. But what's very difficult to recover, it's a way of relating to the world, So if we understand, let's say, pottery as a language, as a way to describe the world, as a way to relate to the world, as a way to live or celebrate the world, in all its different levels, then that's what has to be looked at. I don't like the word preserved, but maybe honored. And that's the things that we have to learn from, I think, the ways of life. So What I think, what does that mean? It means that, there's exactly this idea of linear evolution, like, oh, we're past that, right? And then what's really modern, what's really on top of the wave, or, on the edge, what's really exciting, it's the cell phones and going to Mars, or that type of thing.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So, but I think still, what for me, what's very interesting is, what does a cell phone say about our civilization? What does our language of objects say about us? So it's these objects that we so admire, that have nothing in them that says who made them, where it comes from. Actually doesn't even say what it does, or doesn't even talk about its time, its duration. It's an object that's completely removed, abstract. It only speaks of efficiency, the efficiency of the machine. And that's what we value, this coldness, this like abstracted thing, out of time, out of space. And then, so what we can learn from a simple cup, it's actually things that make us human, and that are very concrete. So in a cup, when you work with clay, there's nothing virtual about it. There's nothing abstracted. Everything is what it is. If the hand of the potter does a movement, that's going to be recorded in there. And it's a specific clay from a specific place, from a specific territory, with a very specific history, made by a specific person. Potters, for example, can recognize, even if they're making just a pot, simple cooking pot, they can recognize who made it from very minor changes. But that's my hand, that's my grandmother's hand, so there's this. It's actually, you ask what can we learn, or what have we learned. That's a huge question, and maybe we can go later into broader aspects of what we can learn in relation to, let's say, different paradigms of civilization. But one thing is, I would say, is this aspect of connection, as opposed to our culture that enjoys so much, or lives out of actually fragmentation and disconnection. So this is a culture of connection to the territory, to the earth around you, to the history, because you're doing the same as so many people before, 180 generations back. Connection to the actual making. So one design teacher used to say that Photoshop and Illustrator, those tools from the computer, those are dishonest tools, because you can always erase your mistakes, right? You can always go back and change mistakes. Here, as I said, it's what it is. So it's completely honest, direct. It's just contact. And then it's also, even when you use it, I think that's one of the qualities, right? There's texture, there's smell, there's contact. You're touching something that's real, that's made by someone, and there's all these things. And then that can grow into things we've learned about economy, or just ways of living in general.
It's I know that this moment is forcing me. It is forcing me to and a lot of people to slow down and look at the communities that we are already existing in, communities we've ignored that are already around us, to recognize a little bit more, maybe the people that need support. And tell me what you think about this. Like, I wonder if the problem isn't so much inherent in the technology, but that it's become disconnected, or that somehow we think it supersedes what we might call an older technology. That, because we have Zoom, let's say, oh, we don't need to see each other in person anymore. Or because we have commercial, porcelain factories, we don't need handmade ceramics anymore. It's kind of like this, because I find like, I definitely see value. Like right now, for example, the fact that we can communicate over this thing in the middle of a quarantine, and you're 4,000 miles away. I don't know how many miles away. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. However, I would rather be in the same room. I would rather be sitting right next to you, having this conversation. So it's like, how do we kind of look at a world, and maybe part of what you're talking about is like, what does it say about our civilization? What does it say about our culture? And I might think about, like, when you said the word honor, what does it show about what we honor, right? Are we honoring this this technology, this abstract idea, or are we actually honoring the connection that's happening in this moment that this technology is enabling? Yes, but that's secondary, right? It's kind of like when I was thinking about, or how I am thinking about, flipping my paradigm with work. Am I serving the idea of work, which is serving a lot of ideals that I don't actually believe in? Or am I using work to serve me and ideals that I do actually believe in? And finding those ways where they can coexist.
I think, well, two things come to mind when you say that. And I wish I could say, oh, everything has value and everything can coexist, and the technology can be mixed with plowing the fields or da. But I think one aspect that we don't take into account when we take that posture is the cost, right? I mean, it's great that we can be talking like this, and I'm here, I'm full of screens and devices and stuff, so it's weird for me to say it, but the cost of being able to do that, I think that we need to factor that in, right? I mean, it's great that we can go to the moon. I don't know. It's great that we can all have cell phones. It's great that we can eat any type of fruit in any season from anywhere in the world. But what's the cost? And then it's not only the economic cost, it's not only the cost to the environment, but I think it's also the cost of obscuring other types of wealth that we do have, right? So it's like living in a constant mood of lacking, of unable to what's the word, like this desire that's never fulfilled, But that's because we're not recognizing all the other types of wealth or richness that we have around. So I think it's what I struggle a lot with our work is this idea that we're helping the artisans. Like it's the artisans who need things, and we're kind of projecting this idea of need and lack. Like, oh, the artisans don't have schools, they don't have highways, they don't have I don't know, television, cell phones, lights, motors. And I go to the house of Goya or Demetria. They have no machines. There are no electrical motors in their homes, and everything is direct. They have clean drinking water from the well or from the river, straight from the river. They have to move their body to get their food. They have their chickens. They have their sheep. They have their vegetables there. The tools, they make them themselves. Everything is so direct. Also with the community, with the land, so that creates a lot of wealth that I think we have lost in the way that we organize our life through the narrative of abstraction and disconnection, right? So, yeah, it's one great thing over the other, but then one has a bigger cost than the other. So, it's for sure it's great that we can be talking like this, but as you say, it's much greater to talk in person. It's much richer. It's richer,
no doubt,
right? So I think that's what I've been noticing here also in being in quarantine. Like, I'm faced with this changes in rhythms, in doing new things. Like, I have to dedicate an hour to cooking and another 45 minutes to eating, washing the dishes. So I'm thinking, okay, well, and I struggle with it because I had a different inertia.
You had La Jicara.
But then it's, I had like, exactly. And it's noticing what other things come about when we let them, right? Like metaphorically or not, like what comes out of silence, what comes out of slow. It's not only, it's, if we relate to that as a lack, as something missing, then we're missing the point, because silence or slowness or all these other things can give a lot, right? Or they're full, let's say, of. I think that's more or less what we're talking about, right?
Are you still there? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm here.
You kind of went out for a second. What do you think that? So, if you were to talk to I don't know what village you were, if that was even a specific village you were talking about, but like, what do you think they would say about not having machines or not having, I don't know, like a way to carry water more easily, or like what would, are they just like, we don't need that?
Well, it's very, and specifically with Demetria from Tonaltepec, she has a very clear posture. Of course, there's all types of artisans, and some of them want machines. Some of them make machines to faster their production. But this conversation, I traveled with Demetria to Jalapa, to Veracruz, to a congress, and we stayed at a hotel. The first time she stays at a hotel. First time she goes up escalators. First time she goes in a elevator. First time she sees a hotel buffet, the breakfast buffet. And so she was super impressed about how everything was produced or mediated by machines, you know. And she talked about the food coming from iron. She said, like, all the food that we're getting here is food from iron, processed by iron or with iron things. She's like, I don't know what's in there. I don't know what's that creating for me. I don't know where the food comes from. So she was not in opposition or in shock or something, but really just not needing it. Like, I enjoy my water from the river. I enjoy making the food myself in clay pots that were made by myself. And not in this kind of, let's say, ideological anarchist or super autonomous way, but just like, this is more enjoyable.
I wonder, like, for many people, I think it requires losing something to be reminded of the value that it had. I mean, I'm seeing that right now with myself, with not seeing as many people in person and wanting to connect and like, oh, I'm gonna call you, I'm gonna text you, I'm gonna have a Zoom, whatever, and recognizing, oh wow, I really get a lot out of being with people, and wow, I really took that for granted, and I think that this sort of, maybe on a more macro scale, this desire to make things easier, right? This desire to ease what we might think is suffering, which is never going to stop. It's like we create, different situations or machines or whatever to do these things. And it can be very hard. I mean, this woman you're talking about seems very aware and is able to maybe see that before losing it. But I think for a lot of people, like, we have to lose it first. We have to go so far in the other direction where we're like, oh shit, that was valuable. I didn't see it before. Like parents, like, I think for so many people, it's like, for myself, when I was a teenager, it was like, get away from me, mom and dad. You don't know anything. And, as I got older, I get into my 20s, I'm like, oh, maybe they were valuable. Maybe they are valuable, And so it's just one of those things. I think it's a common experience where, like, what's that phrase? I don't know. Was it T.S. Eliot who was like, we travel only to end up at home to realize it for the first time, or something like that. I don't know what the right phrase is, but you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
So and what's weird about this moment is that we have lost so many things, but at the same time we're longing for the normal to come back, right? So that's the thing. Like, maybe, do we want to come back to the place where we lack so many things, really? or man, how are we going to do to actually live in new ways and bring about new ways? And that's because so that it's not a romantic thing, right? Like, it's not a it's actually nice to see people, but truly efficiency is what counts. Right? I mean, we need to make more space to meet in person, but we need to pump up the economy and create better and faster machines to go back to normal. So I think that's where the like, one of my dreams is that designers could work in a way to make new futures not only accessible but attractive or desirable. Let's say, you know, how would a future where you have to, I don't know, maybe it's cliche, but let's say where you have to grow your food, where traveling is really limited by nature, not by force. How would that look like? How would it look like? You know, the products or the objects that you make to survive are made in a community, and they're not objects of ego and show off. You know, are not heroic deeds. Those type of paradigm shifts. I mean, I think, you know, what if anonymity was a value that we honored? What if being in touch was something that we honored? What if really understanding soil was something that we honored? No, in Mexico it's very weird that people know many of the people, or let's say, no, not many of the people or most of the people, but most of the designers in universities, so people who are creating objects and products, know much more about Europe and the US and elsewhere than Mexico. And then we've done some exercises with artisans in mapping where they are and where their previous generations were. And it's amazing to see how some people have never left their village for centuries. And you could see that as a limitation. And of course, many of them love to travel. But man, imagine the knowledge that you acquire and that you hold about your territory, your land. You know, that's just, for me, it blows my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to, you said the word desirable. I mean, desire is, I mean, that's the motivator, right? So it's like, how do you shift the ideas about what is valuable, like you said, so that that humans, and I'm talking kind of about like, how do you socially engineer this? I mean, I don't know, but like, how do you engineer where those types of things become desirable? Like, how can you make that knowledge and that depth, that scale of connection, how do you make that visible in a way that people can like see it and want it? You know?
Well, wasn't COVID engineered? So there you go.
Who knows?
No, I'm just joking.
Well, I mean, in a sense, I mean, that's true, right? Like, I mean, one of the things, again, coming back to this, is like, I mean, longing and desire is such a powerful force. Like, I'm experiencing longing and desire for physical connection with other people, with other human beings, you know? So definitely removing that is making me remember, you know, and saying, oh yeah, I want that, you know? So it's like, you know, I'm sure there are certainly other people that are recognizing their need and desire for connection, I mean, in a deeper way.
For me, I think the route I see, and the one I'm taking, is one of first recognizing the different types of wealth, the things that really feed us, the things that make us human, and then trying to grow from there, making them more accessible, more visible, and then creating projects that are related to those other paradigms that are paradigms of connection and care, paradigms of generosity, of community. So I think, when you talk about engineering, then it's a little bit top down. And we wish the politicians could, really think about these things, but they are always behind. So, for example, I think if people, projects like community gardens, then if people can enjoy a community garden, that means a couple of hours out of the shopping mall, right? Which is the paradigm of disconnection, consumption, and despair. I mean, for me, one of those the shopping malls are places of misery. Actually, even if they're really bright and golden, for me it's misery in those places, as opposed to the life in a garden. So I would say that's the way to go, to create spaces where people can enjoy this type of things. For example, even I don't know, even enjoying community discussions, instead of just voting in the abstract. Yeah, so those type of things, like in Mexico, here in Oaxaca, there's this thing called tequio, which people in the communities are forced to do. It's actually mandatory to do. What would you call it in
like
English?
Community
It's
service?
like social community service. Yeah, but in order to have your full rights as a member of the community, you have to do this community service. And sometimes it's paving roads or fixing walls or cleaning the fields, that type of thing. And it's tiresome. Oh, some people do the police work, doing rounds at night, and I know it's heavy work, but of course it brings many other things in terms of connection and knowledge. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe if each one of us starts valuing these things, recognizing them, and then creating projects out of those ideas, how to make more space for those different types of wealth.
No, I agree. I think, definitely, mandatory community service. I'm all for enforcing that. Like, I don't care. Let's, but seriously, like, it's because I think oftentimes you look at the problems in the world, and you're like, okay, a political solution. But oftentimes, you're voting between a punch in the face and a kick in the balls, and it's like, okay. I'm certainly going to vote, especially in this next election. However, I mean, you're right. I mean, you're talking about, a sort of directness in a way that's similar to making pottery, right? You're having a real connection with people. You're having, and when I'm talking about, say, gardening as an example, you're having a real connection with people. You're actually doing something that supports more than just yourself. That is, you're probably doing some good things for the soil. And when when you're as polarized as as the U.S. is and many other places, it's like opportunities to be around people that aren't like you is really the only key to seeing that you're not an evil human being if you have a different political ideology, you know. You know, and it's like, and so anyway, I'm right there with you. And another thing came to mind in terms of your project, that, you know, the idea of like buying ceramics as a consumer item is kind of the sneaky way of like getting people's awareness into that process of making clay, because you're kind of like I mean, I have a retail store, and there's plenty of people that come in there that aren't necessarily they're not coming in because of the stories or the artisans. They're not coming in because they're interested in who made it and why. They're interested. They want the thing. They want the cup. They want the print. They want the jewelry. But, you know, it's like I have an opportunity when they buy something to have a conversation and to say, well, hey, you know, this is the person that made it. This is how they make it. Oh, hey, by the way, there's this whole other project that's going on around this. Isn't that interesting? Oh, yes, that's interesting. You know, so it's kind of this like way to sort of use desire for objects to kind of talk about a broader thing. And maybe they wouldn't have thought about it otherwise. Maybe that's too optimistic. I don't know.
But and there's other levels, no, Frank? Like doesn't necessarily have to be directly with the person who buys, like, but it's also the relations that you establish with yourself, with your time, with the people that you work with the type of space you're occupying, and the shop itself, how you make things, the language you use. Even if the people who come in and buy don't give a shit about the stories, or, you know, they won't change anything, you're already occupying space with different intentions and
that's right.
You know, different.
That's right.
I mean, you could be you could own a Starbucks, and, you know, and have some clay pots from your friends, and then Starbucks tells lots of stories and all of that. But
I also just want to qualify, I have a lot of great people that do come in the shop and are interested in the stories. So I'm definitely grateful for that. No, I think you're right. I mean, because the money making aspect, the transactional part of it, is becoming less and less important. It's essential in a way, because I need to stay open to keep doing what I'm doing, and I need to find some way to make a living. But as far as like where it sits on the list of like what's my priority, it's steadily moving down. You know, recently, in the past year, I'm the kind of person that's always like looking to start a new thing. I love beginning projects. I love that sort of initial impulse and excitement of beginning something new. And earlier, you know, in the year, I was thinking about, you know, what's the next step with Hecho a Mano, and you know, do I want to find a bigger space and things like that? Like, how do I grow, right? Because my space is fairly small. It's actually a little bit bigger than the Tiendita, but it's, you know, it is bigger than that. You know, but it's like 450 square feet. But lately, after kind of this pause button of coronavirus, that desire is starting to fade. It's like, wait a second, like there's still so much richness and things that I can do within the scope of 450 square feet. It's not about the space. It's not about how big the space is. is what's happening in the space. It's a no-brainer. It's totally obvious, but it's amazing how easy it can be to miss obvious things. So looking at scale and how, when we look at growth just for the sake of growth, how big can we get? We miss out on that richness. I miss out on the richness in my personal experience of what's already there, and the lessons. It's like you have a cow and you milk it once, and you're like, oh, we got all the milk. Move on. We need a new cow, a bigger cow that has more milk. And it's like you haven't got the milk. You haven't got all the milk. Yeah.
I was reminded of something that I've noticed, and I usually explain that artisans, it's something that we've learned also from the artisans in this realm of money and market. We see that the artisans are always thinking about money and about how to sell and how to sell more. Because that's a way of living, right? They have to buy food so they're always thinking about that. But what's interesting is that it's not the most important thing for them. Even if they're always, every move is like, okay, am I going to sell this one? Is this going to take me to new clients? When you talk to them, money is not what matters. So it's an interesting way for me to live in holding what we would consider maybe opposites. Like, yes, I'm always thinking about that, but it's not the most important. I work because this is what I love, because this is my history, because this is my heritage, but that's what's important. And I don't want this tradition to be lost, but I have to be thinking all the time on how to sell. So I'm always very interested in seeing these new or different ways of relating to money and market, and how people can be so grateful that you are buying, that they will give you for free as a gift 50% or 100% of what you just bought, with an extra item, el pilón, it's called here. And that just recently happened to me. Like, I went with a friend to a huge artisan fair. And he bought a plate and a cup from a lady. I think it was 50 pesos. And so super cheap. And the lady was so happy that she said, so take this other cup for 20 pesos. Okay. And then I thought, I was not going to buy, but I saw that gesture of generosity from the lady. I said, okay, I'll buy something. And say, hey, how much is this plate? 20 pesos. Okay, then I bought the plate. And she said, and take this one. Another cup of 20 pesos.
Yeah.
And she said something like, now it's the time to be generous. Tomorrow, I don't know.
Right.
If I have the chance. So that's a complete different paradigm. And she's not negating market, right? She's not negating commerce or exchange. But the way she's holding that relationship, it's totally different.
Isn't it amazing how infectious generosity can be, though? Like, one day I heard about, somebody who was at a cafe, right, and was, bought his drink and gave the person $20 and said, just, the next couple people that get drinks, this is going to pay for their drinks. Right. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I was going to try that. So one day I went to a cafe, and a friend of mine was the barista, was the coffee maker. And I was like, here's $20. Just get whoever comes in after me, just buy their drinks. And I come back the next day, and she said, that kept happening over and over again. That I gave her $20,
Really?
and then the next person that came up, she's like, "Oh, the person who was here before left extra money to pay for your drink," and he's like, "Oh, great, here's $20. Keep doing it." And she said it went on all day long, and it was not everybody did it, but like a bunch of people did it, and I think like even for the most like hard-hearted people, it can really wake them up, to see that, because it's like it's such a just like what you're not just looking out for your own self-interest. Like it's really amazing how transformative that can be, and in ways that I think that are probably impossible to understand intellectually. Like right now, I'm trying to bring that in even more, even though like my income has dropped way down, and like I'm probably making 5 to 10% of what I was making before. I know it's still really important for me to be buying work from artists. So I'm saying, hey, I can't place a big order right now, but I want to keep this going. And I find a lot of times the days when I do that, I get orders online, so I'm not going to say like how that works or like make any speculation. It's like, okay, it's happening, so I'm going to keep doing it. It's pretty incredible how that can be. And I think when we practice it, we can see it. It's really easy to see, if you just try.
Right.
Just try it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Wow. We've already been talking for like an hour. That's great. Do you have any time constraints right now?
A little bit. Yeah, I think I need to carry on with some other stuff. We want to start a series of maybe small conversations and interviews or mini live feeds with the artisans. In this, I mean, that's one of the things that's weirdly opened up. That now we have the opportunity to make the artisans more visible through the technology. So we'll make use of that.
I did that with Kitsia a few days ago I think she was at Metzonla.
Yeah, I missed it.
It was really cool. And I know a few people that tuned in, it was really inspiring for them to see directly that process and to see the makers and see what they were working on. It really created a deeper connection for them, for sure, to actually see that. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we went to...
It made me want to go.
I saw a screen picture and you look very happy.
Yeah, I know. I think we tried this last time, maybe to go to Coyotepec, but the next time I'm in Oaxaca, I definitely want to try to make some trips out and meet some of the artisans and hang out. I really want to make that a priority.
Sure.
But cool. Well, this has been great. I feel like we could probably talk for several more hours. There's a lot of stuff here, so we'll just we'll save that for part 2 whenever that is.
Yeah, great. It's always great talking to you.
Likewise.